And here we go. All right, everyone, we're live. I'm Brother Doug, as always, with my mom, Sister Sharon, with Brother Yahusha. We are the Wakened by Yahuwah Assembly and Yahuwah Almighty and Yahuwah's the Messiah. Today we're getting back on our Chronicle studies. We've had to redo this chapter mainly because of my negligence here. I kind of screwed up and on the recording on one of our studies. So we're going to have to re-go into this. First Chronicles chapter 1. You know what, Mom? How about you start us off and then
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Okay, this is entitled to Noah's sons: Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Yared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. The sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The Japhethites. The song of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tubal.
and here we go.
Whoops. My bad. My bad. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Yavan: Arishah, Tarshish, the Kittim, and Rodanim. The Hamites. The sons of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush: Seba, Havilah, Sabra, Raamah, and Sabteka. The sons of Raamah: Sheba and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who grew to be a mighty warrior on earth. Mitzrayim was the father of the Ludites, Anamites, Lehabites, Naphthalites, Pathmasites, Peushites, from whom the Philistines come, and Caphtorites. Canaan was the father. Can you hear? Brother, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Canaan was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, Ariadites, Semarites, and Hamathites. The sons of Shem: Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram: Huz, Hul, Gether, and Meshech. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah the father of Eber. 2 sons were born to Eber. One was named Peleg, because in his time the earth was divided. His brother was named Yoktan. Yoktan was the father of Amadad, Shelah, Hatzmaraveth, Yera, Hadaram, Utsal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Yobab. All these were sons of Yoktan. Shem, Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Ru, Serug, Nahor, Terah, and Abram, that is Abraham. The sons of Abraham: Yitzhak and Ishmael. These were their descendants: Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Keter, Adhiel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Masa, Hadad, Tema, Yetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael. The sons born to Keturah, Abraham's concubine: Zipron, Yokshan, Medan, Midian, Yitzbak, and Shua. The sons of Yokshan: Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Midian: Ephah, Epher, Yanok, Abida, and Eldaah. All these were descendants of Keturah. Abraham was the father of Yitzhak, the son of Yitzhak, Esau, and Yisrael. The sons of Esau, Eliphaz, Reuel, Yeush, Yaline, and Korah. The sons of Eliphaz, Taman, Omar, Sopho, Gatam, and Canats. By Timnah, Amalek. The sons of Reuel, Nahat, Sarah, Shema, and Mitzah. The Edomites, the people of Seir. The sons of Seir, Lotan, Shobal, Sibian, Anah, Diashan, Etzer, and Dishan. The sons of Lotan, Hori, and Homam. Timnah was Lotan's sister. The sons of Shobal, Alvan, Manahat, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. The sons of Tsipion, Allah, and Anah. The son of Anah, Dishan. The sons of Dishan, Hemdan, Eshban, Mithran, and Keran. The sons of Etzer, Vilhan, Sa'avan, and Akan. The sons of Dishan, Uts, and Atzan. The rulers of Edom. These were the kings who reigned in Edom before any Israelite king reigned. Bela, son of Beor, whose city was named Dinhabah. When Bela died, Yobab, son of Zerah, from Botzrah, succeeded him as king. When Yobab died, Husham, from the land of the Temanites, succeeded him as king. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated Midian in the country of Moab, succeeded him as king. His city was named Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah from Matrekah succeeded him as king. When Samlah died, Shaul from Rehoboth on the river succeeded him as king. When Shaul died, Baal Hanan, son of Achbor, succeeded him as king. When Baal Hanan died, Hadad succeeded him as king. His city was named Pau, and his wife's name was Mehetabel, daughter of Matred, the daughter of Metzahab. Hadad also died. The chiefs of Edom were Timnah, Alva, Japheth, Aholabamah, Elah, Pidon, Kenaz, Taman, Mitzar, Magdiel, and Elam. These were the chiefs of Edom.
Interesting. So your footnotes here, some of your footnotes down here on this is the current NIV. I don't know if yours are gonna have.
You have a lot of footnotes here that I
here. Verse 4.
Mhm.
Supposedly, this rendering cannot be found in the Masoretic. That's what the modern NIV is saying. First Chronicles 1:4. See here what it's talking about. The sons of Noah. Yeah. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So supposedly the phrase "the sons of Noah"
It's not there. Yeah,
is not there in the Masoretic, which is very strange. Verse 5: sons may mean descendants. Yes, we know that. Okay, verse 6, it says many Hebrew manuscripts in Vulgate see also Septuagint in Genesis 10:3. So that's a good reference there. We might go to that just to kind of cross that with is that what verse that is? That's verse 6. So First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 6, Genesis 10:3. Just look at verse 6 here. See the sons of Gomer. Yeah. So Gomer would have been, I believe, he's the ancestor of Ashkenaz.
Mm-hmm.
All the Ashkenazis come from him.
Mm-hmm.
Gomer is a Japhethite, so all of Japheth goes through him,
Mm-hmm.
and Madai, Yvonne, Tubal, all of them go through him. Let's see here, verse 10. Father many may mean ancestor, predecessor, founder. Also in verses 11, 13, 18, and 20. Verse 13, or of the Sidonians, the foremost. So that's interesting. That gives you a hint into who fathered Tyre and Sidon. So you have here, what's interesting is Tyre and Sidon seem to come from Canaan.
Interesting.
So they would have been the only, as far as we know, this would have been really the only what's the word I'm looking for? Genetically pure line of Canaan. We know that the Hittites were completely corrupt as far as Nephilim lineage. Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, I would have to look into, but I think they are part of the whole Anak lineage. I don't know much about the Hamathites, the Zemarites, and the Arvadites, but Sidon, I think, is completely human. So somehow they did not get a genetic curse somehow, from what I remember. Unless I'm wrong, and the king that Solomon knew and his dad knew was a Nephilim. I don't see anything in scripture that would allude to Sidonians as being Nephilim. As far as I know, they were just Gentile lineage. They were just as far as I know, they were regular pagan humans. The Phoenicians and the Sidonians.
I remember them saying something like in regards to that king of the area of Naphtali. Do you remember that?
No. His mother.
Oh, got it.
He was a mixed Gentile Israelite lineage.
Okay.
The king of Tyre at that time. I'm trying to remember his name.
Hiram.
Hiram was part Israelite born.
Huh.
As far as we know in scripture, though, the Phoenicians and Sidonians in general, they were not giants, as far as we know. There seems to be no link to them and all these other giant tribes like the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hittites, the Hivites. All those are like part of the seven nations that Israel were supposed to dispossess.
Right.
Right. I got a lot of notes actually written down here. Let's see here. Got verse all the way up at verse 5. Yavon, by tradition, is the father of the Greeks. So according to Jewish and Yahudi tradition, the Yavon founded Crete, I think, is the tradition. So I'm just going to see if I can find any information about that right now. But the legend is that Yavon would have found Crete according to Jewish tradition and Hebrew tradition. So
interesting that Kittim is mentioned here.
Yeah.
Kittim being Cyprus, which is one of those islands, on the Mediterranean, close to Greece. I don't think it's actually part of Greece, but close to Greece. So I just find that interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you mentioned Crete. I'm thinking of, Greece, obviously. But Kittim is our modern day Cyprus. And so I find these things interesting.
Okay. See, Creed circular letter. So actually I was wrong. So there's no specific information that he found Crete, only that he's associated with the Greeks in Crete and the Aegean Islands. So we actually don't fully know who for sure who found Greece, but it seems to come from Yvonne's line, or at least by tradition, they believe Yvonne could have had something to do with finding the Greek ethnicity. So I think sometimes the scripture, even Yvonne in the Hebrews, sometimes used for Greece. So yeah. So let's see here. Verse 10, Nimrod began to be, what does yours say? A mighty warrior?
Yeah,
Yeah.
10, let's see here.
I think that was definitely a mistranslation, mainly because the Hebrew Gibborim can mean mighty warrior, doesn't necessarily mean mighty warrior. Shabbat Shalom, brother Dennis.
Shabbat Shalom, brother.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, after I was getting over that mess, then I came down with a cave.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, we're glad you're getting over it.
I finally am getting rid of congestion and everything else.
Oh, wonderful.
I was in bed all last week.
Wow. Wow. Goodness.
I think I told you I went to Missouri for Passover.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And guess who I saw there?
Uh-oh.
Who?
Scott?
Bobby Moosaps and his family.
Oh, you saw me, Chris.
Oh,
Bobby?
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. I haven't seen them in years. I bet their children are getting big now. Trying to think, Ava's probably like what, 7, 8, or even older now. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're.
That's
I know
nice.
their older daughter's probably almost ready for. I don't know if she's going to go to trade school or what she's going to do, but I know the older daughter. I'm trying to remember her name. Because you had Christopher, you had. Oh man, my memory is so shot. You had the one son Christopher, and the other one I'm trying to remember. Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad you got to see them in person.
That's nice.
Yeah, I got to talk to him. It was interesting too because
Kayla.
He
sorry.
He was introduced Bobby Moosaps, and I know that name. And I got to talk to him for a little bit, and it was good. He's still at that bison farm, and he said bison aren't like cattle or anything. They're kind of aggressive, and one I think gored him, and he had to have 17 stitches.
Yeah, they're like bulls. They're a lot closer to like if you're on a rodeo or something. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were at were you with Sue at the POV fellowship?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I kind of I didn't know you told us you were going there. I did kind of figure that's what happened during the week of matzah, but I didn't realize you told us ahead of time. So I must have not been paying attention. So
yeah. First day I got there, I got sick. We ate at one of those Chipotle restaurants, and got a beef burrito, but it was the size of 4 beef burritos. I couldn't eat but maybe less than half of it. And then later on, that's when I got sick.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Chipotle. Yeah, they're. You never know. They're. You got people working there that are not. Half of the time they don't call out sick when they're sick.
Oh, it's true.
You could have got a disease from people making your burrito because they don't. Nowadays, people don't call out sick anymore. Like with the economy the way it is, they got people coming into work sick. So Yeah, I could see how that could happen.
Oh
And
yeah.
honestly, I would never eat one of their burritos only because it's the spices would bother my stomach. They
Mhm.
all those like hot seasonings on their burritos, so I would probably just get sick just from the spices they use.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm glad that you recovered. So
Definitely.
what we were doing just a couple minutes ago, we read First Chronicles on the record here. And so we were let's see here. So we pretty much went through some of the notes I had written down here. Nimrod, it should actually say, began to be a giant rather than a mighty warrior, which a lot of the newer versions will say just mighty warrior, which kind of confuses things because then you're just thinking he's just like some soldier or some hero, which he did become in lore a hero, a mighty hero, but the heroes of old, we can go back to Genesis 6, you'll see what the heroes of old were. And so
Yeah.
the original heroes, when you go back into ancient times, the heroes they were the giants, they were the Nephilim, they were the progeny of the Watchers and the human women, which eventually became sirens. Um,
Yeah.
so you see here, especially in the Septuagint, if you have a Septuagint, it should say in the footnotes that even though in the English it says sons of Elohim, it should actually say angelos in the Greek or messengers. So where people get confused here is they'll say, well, Doug, the Bren says the sons. Okay, but yes, Breton is going based on a modern copy of the Septuagint. He's not going by the original because the originals have been so fragmented at this point, they had to go by modern copies of these manuscripts. So in the modern copy already, whoever was recopying it, eventually the Roman Catholic Church got their hands on the Septuagint. They made what's called the Codex Vaticanus, which is the Vatican Codex of the LXX. So they translated it backwards from Greek into Latin, and then so eventually Agilos Theos became what you see in the Masoretic as sons of Elohim. What's very weird is that if you go, you have any decent, like I'll show you real quick on my Bible Discovery app here. They actually have the footnote here. The original Alexandrian fragment would actually say messengers of Elua. So this is what happens when you get a certain manuscript recopied so many times over, is eventually things are going to get changed eventually. So I'll show you here. I'll put it on my shared screen here. So this is my Bible Discovery app. You can, if you have Windows, you can get this app very easily for free. It's very similar to My Sword, eSword, and all that. What this does that I like is they have this LXX 2012 version where they actually give you some footnotes within the module. So I can go to Genesis 6:2, go here, right? Click on this. All right. And here we go. Genesis 6:2, the original Alexandrian manuscript, messengers of Elua or angels of Elohim. Okay. That was the original Greek, Agilos Theos. So this is before it eventually got changed to, what the Masoretic says. So originally it would have said the messengers of Elua came into the daughters of mankind. And they saw that they were beautiful and they took all wives of whom they chose. Okay. And then it talks about my spirit will not remain among these men. Okay. Meaning that Yahuwah is removing his spirit because of what's happening is in verse 2. Now, the giants were born upon the earth in those days. And after that, now again, those days we talked about last week, just for brother Dennis's benefit because he wasn't able to get on. So I explain here, Sister Marissa last week had the question that a lot of people have. So does this mean that they were doing this again after the flood? No, it does not mean that. It just means that giants were on the earth in those days, the first incursion and after the flood. So there were giants in both times. Does not mean that does not mean that necessarily there had to be two incursions. But even if there was, I believe, according to Enoch gives us the context that even if there was two incursions, that after that doesn't necessarily mean after the flood. According to Enoch, the first incursion happened in the days of Jared. So in those days would have been the days of Jared. So if you understand what I'm trying to say here, so that's the context there. So let's see here. So we got so the first incursion would be the days of Jared. The second incursion could have been basically, during Noah's day. I mean, you have a couple hundred years, if I'm not mistaken, between Jared and Noah. So you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
So basically you have at least, two possibilities when in those days and after that could be. So that's why I don't take the whole post-flood incursion opinion, because it's nowhere in the text that it says the days after that are after the flood. Like there's no the in those days is never mentioned as Noah's day. It's never in Genesis literally as days of Noah. So this is where people get the assumption that there was an incursion after the flood. And if Numbers 13, I mentioned last week too, if that's translated correctly in Numbers 13, it says that the Anakim came from the giants. So you had giants begetting giants in Numbers 13, which means that already you would have had giants just having children, having other giants. So anyway, but the reason I wanted to mention this mainly was because it calls them the heroes of old in certain versions of Genesis 6:4. So people will always say, oh, well, Nimrod was just a mighty warrior, but then why is the term mighty warrior being used sometimes in the context with the giants? Okay, so again, if you look up the word Gibborim, it can also mean giant. So the actual Hebrew of that verse in First Chronicles, it's Gibborim, if I'm not mistaken. So in the Hebrews. So I personally believe in First Chronicles chapter 1, it should have said, just as it does in Genesis 10 in the Septuagint, when we're talking about the genealogies of Nimrod, it should say he began to be a giant, a Gibborim. In verse 10 of First Chronicles 1 is where we're at here. So verse 11, the Philistines came through Cush. Okay, so the Philistines and the Egyptians were kind of like cousins. They were, which kind of makes sense why the Philistines, they become, a lot of them are giants because they're related to, they're in the same lineage. So they're from Ham by Cush. So anyway, that would make sense why a lot of the Philistines were giants. Canaan's descendants, most of them are giants, as we see in verse 13 to 15 of this chapter. Most of them are. I think there was like one where it kind of snuck in. I didn't realize this before that that Sidon and Tyre were related to them. Now, as far as I know, I don't think they're giants. The Tyrrhenians and the Sidonians, I don't think were giants. So that seems to be the only lineage that I can see here from Canaan's line that I would think we almost know certainly that they weren't giants. So somehow that genetic curse would have passed by Sidon. I don't know how, but anyway, that seems to be what happened there, because we as far as I know, there's not one Nephilim mentioned in scripture that was a Tyrrhenian or a Sidonian or a Phoenician. So as far as I know. Asher, we have here in verse 17. This is the father of the original Assyrians, original key phrase. There's been a lot of theories about what happened to the original Assyrians. Just like other researchers after me, like Chuck Missler, believe the original Assyrians took over Egypt when you get to the time of Moses. And that's why the Pharaoh of Moses' time, why he doesn't know who Joseph is. Like, he doesn't understand Joseph. He doesn't know the laws of Joseph. He doesn't know who Yahuwah is. He's like, for the most part, they just look at the Hebrew people like they're scared of them. They're like, what happens if they get too numerous? We're going to be done. So it seems like this Pharaoh in Moses' time would be someone from a different lineage, mainly too because of Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1 in the Septuagint says, it doesn't just say the word different, it says another kind. So when it says another Pharaoh rose up, it actually means in the Greek like heteros is the word. So meaning like a different kind, completely different. Not just spiritual, but possibly ethnic.
Yeah.
Ethnically different. Like, how you have heterosexuals, how, so different kinds. So anyway. I'm trying to see if there was any other verses here that I wrote down. So verse 19. I don't know why I wrote that one. Okay, I know why. It says, in Peleg's days, the earth was divided. Now, in my opinion, I'm stressing here, I can't prove this. I don't believe it's talking about the Tower of Babel. Someone has brought this up before, and I forget if Rob Skiba was the one to bring this up, but I remember seeing this on YouTube. Someone brought this up that if you go with the Tower of Babel interpretation for this, then the Tower of Babel would have had to occur a lot earlier. Peleg was born way before, the Tower of Babel event. So this is the problem with saying that in his days, the earth was divided, meaning that like the people on the earth were divided, which number one, the biggest problem to me is even without going that far, it says the earth, the land was divided, not the people. It doesn't say the people were divided. It says the earth. Okay. Earth, eretz, dirt. Okay. So the only way, and we've been taught about this, but we've been taught to believe that this is associated with evolution. This is how the devil works. He puts a little bit of truth in there, and then he gets people to, deny the scriptures because he puts something like Pangea in evolution, which in reality, Pangea didn't happen millions of years ago. I personally believe Pangea happened in the days of Peleg, where it says the earth was divided, right? So if you think about it, right, let's just say, okay, the flood, right, would cause separation in a supercontinent, right? Okay, let's just use common sense here. Okay, like if that's the case and there's a supercontinent like this, some people consider this supercontinent, maybe it wasn't Pangea, but it was Atlantis, whatever. The point is that these countries would have been separated from the flood. And the earth would have shook and all that, and possibly you would have had this supercontinent broken apart. And that's how you have today, where you have all these countries all separated around the earth. So that's the theory. I believe that Pangea is real, but that they pretty much just like replaced the terminology. I think you have some type of supercontinent at one point in time, and the flood caused a separation. So some people, they got all these theories like, Mu or Lemuria or whatever. But the point is, there had to have been, I believe, a supercontinent at one point to make this verse make sense. For it to say that the earth was divided, I mean, that's literally in the most basic Hebrew. It's saying the land or earth was physically divided. So anyway, so let me just see here. I think we got two more. No. We got verse 33. The Midianites were Shemites. I have written down here. So let's see here. We got no. So you have the Midianites, who, if you look at verse 32, they come from, excuse me, Keturah, right?
Right.
Keturah is a wife of Abraham. She's Abraham's concubine. So by default, that means Midian is partly Shemite. They come from Abraham through Keturah. So many people don't know that, even though they're considered Gentile because they were not part of, I guess, because they were not part of the direct line of Abraham or whatever, or I forget how it works. Like, I think it goes through Jacob, actually, because they were not through Jacob. Technically, they're still considered Gentile, just like you have the original Assyrians through Ashur. They're Shemites, but they're not Israelites. So to me, that's kind of interesting. So Midian would be considered a Gentile nation, even though they went through Shem. So that's kind of interesting to me. So let me see here. Verse 45 was the last one I had. Many people don't pay much attention to verse 45 here because they don't know who Jobab is, or Jobab. Jobab in the book of Job, if you read in the Septuagint, is Job. This is talking about Job. So Jobab is the son of Zerah from Bozrah, aka Edom. Okay, he's an Edomite. Okay, and he was a king of Edom at some point. So it mentions this all here in First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 43 to 45. So it talks about these were the kings who reigned in Edom before any Israelite king reigned. So this kind of gives an idea that Job would have had to be reigning in that area where he was before there was an Israelite king. So we know that he has to be far, far before King David or Saul and all them. He has to be. So, because it says it right there. It says before any Israelite king reigned. So it says Bela, son of Beor, whose city was named Dinhabah. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrah, succeeded him as king. So anyway, but you can go to Job 42 in the Septuagint and find out exactly where this is talked about. Okay, where is it here? Okay, so it talks about here in verse 17 of Job 42 in the Septuagint. It says, this man is described in the Syriac book, living in the land of Uz on the borders of Edom in Arabia, and his name before was Jobab, having taken an Arabian wife. He begat a son whose name was Enon, and himself was the son of his father Zerah. So this is saying that Job is the son of Zerah of Edom, one of the sons of Esau, and of his mother Bosorah, so that he was the fifth from Abraham. So when people always say to me, oh, what's the big deal, Doug, about the Septuagint? Oh, it's not that important. Okay, this version of Job, the Greek version of Job, of the book of Job, is telling you that he is basically the fifth from Abraham, meaning like, 5 generations. Okay, so it's telling you when he would have lived. So 5 generations from Abraham. I would have to put up like one of these Bible timelines just to get a decent idea of what that is. But also, you got to kind of figure out what a generation is back in that day. What would you consider it, like 100 years, 150 maybe?
I would say more like 50 years, 50 to 70. Yeah.
50. Okay. So let's say even 50, right? Let's say it as low as 50. Okay. So let's go 50 times 5. Okay. And then you can kind of get an idea. We might not be able to pinpoint it exactly, but that would be 250 years from Abraham. And then all you would have to do is figure out when Abraham was really born, which again, the bigger problem is you have 2 different timelines. You have the Masoretic timeline and the Septuagint timeline, and that's where it all goes to haywire and all that, because then you have to figure out when exactly. So let's just see here. I want to find that
Mhm.
link I sent to you all you guys way back when. Let me see. LXX versus Masoretic text genealogy timeline. So I know one of these guys actually did one. So let me see here if I can find it. So because the big deal here is that according to the Septuagint, the start of the world would have been I'm trying to remember exactly how it was. I think it's something like the Masoretic timeline. It's 3000 BC is the start of the world, and the Septuagint is more like 4 or 5000 BC. So it's like at least 1,000-year difference. So let me just see here if I can find out. Okay, so this is a website called Associates for Biblical Research. Okay, investigating origins, patriarchal era, Exodus from Egypt. I'm looking for one that has oh, he's got a PDF. That's kind of nice. Ooh, okay. It's got something here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay, this is nice. They got like a whole table here of the ages and stuff. Okay, so if we go by the Septuagint, let's see here. Abraham would have been 2166 BC. Okay. Mind you guys, this is just guesstimations. I'm not saying this is exact, but let's do 2166 minus, or I guess would that, yeah, that would be minus 250. Okay, so you have he would have been born, according to the LXX chronology, it would seem that Job would have been born in 1900 BC. So what's kind of interesting there is that is about, let's see here where exactly that puts him, because unfortunately they stop at Abraham. I hate that. But if Abraham, so let's just say Abraham, if I'm not mistaken, this would actually agree with the Jewish tradition of him knowing either what was Moses' dad's name?
Amram.
Amram. Actually, he might have been a little bit before Moses' dad then. Because when does Moses write the Torah? He writes it in what, 1600 BC?
About that, yeah.
So that would be 300 years after Job. So it's still possible he might have known Amram. It's possible, or maybe he knew Amram's father. It's more likely. But that's kind of where, according to these chronologies, like guesstimating, that's where the book of Job should be in your Bible. This is why I always say that realistically, it's somewhere within the Torah. It's somewhere within the Torah that the book of Job actually took place, the first 5 books. Somewhere within along the first 5 books chronology wise, Ayub should have took place, not like, way, with all these other poetic books like Psalms and all that, where the majority of Psalms, right, is like David's time period and Psalms time period.
Yeah.
So that's like way off. But this is a really interesting PDF. I'm going to share with you guys. This PDF is really tube to look into, just for fun, even because it's like this. There's definitely issues when you look at Genesis 5 in the different manuscripts, and this is where people get the idea of 6,000 years is the Masoretic. Like I said before, if you take those genealogies and you look at it, there's about a difference of 1,000 years combined in Genesis 5. So you're looking, or even worse, I think it's more like 1,500 years difference. Like if you look at the Septuagint, give or take, the Earth would already be at this point 7,400 years old, rather than 61 or 6,200. So you're talking about a huge difference if that's the case. So which makes everyone's years where they would have existed off by a decent bit. So
yeah, so anyway, so I just wanted to mention that because just we were on the topic of Ayub and all that. So I just wanted to kind of mention that and what was going on with that. So let me try to go back to First Chronicles here. So I think that was mainly it. In verse 45, that was the last thing there. Sham died, yada yada yada. Like I said, most of these are all the footnotes they have here. It seems like the NIV used the Septuagint a lot in this chapter because I'm seeing constant footnotes here.
Yeah.
First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 50, many Hebrew manuscripts, some Septuagint manuscripts, Vulgate and Syriac. See also Genesis 36, 39. Okay. First Chronicles 148 has a little footnote here. It says possibly the Euphrates.
On the river, yeah.
Yeah. First Chronicles 142. See Genesis 36, 28. Hebrew Dishon, a variant of Dishan, like with an A. Many Hebrew and Septuagint manuscripts for verse 42 here. Genesis 36, 27. Most Hebrew manuscripts, Zavan or Yakan. So there seems to be a variant there in verse 42 in First Chronicles where you have Zavan or Yakan. 41. C also 3626. So pretty much it's just giving you differences, variances in the text there. What's interesting here is verse 36 says some Septuagint manuscripts also see Genesis 36:12, Hebrew Gatan or Kenaz, Timnah, and Amalek. That's kind of interesting. So yeah, see, the modern NIV has like all like 30 different footnotes.
Oh, okay.
I think this is like the 2011 version, possibly. I want to see like if they tell you. It's probably the modern NIV. Yeah, I wonder if they use a copyright down here. 2011. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 2011 was the last ESV too until this year. Or actually, no, I'm mistaken. I think the ESV went. They might have did a 2016 actually before they did a revision this year. So the ESV is one of those that they constantly revise things. So anyway, we're up to chapter 2 now of Second Chronicles. So we'll be getting a new reader here. I think what we'll do is we'll do let's see, let me get the compare here. Select Bible text to compare. Let's go with LXXE. Let's see, let's do LXXE TS 2009 Samaritan Pentateuch and actually Samaritan Pentateuch probably won't work because I don't think I have Targum of Chronicles anyway, so we'll just do the LXX, Masoretic, and the Vulgate. Yeah. So here we go. All right. I think, you know what? I think I'll do chapter 2 for us. So let's see. First Chronicles, chapter 2. The sons of Yashua, Reuben, Simeon. Don't say. Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. Oh, let me put my shared screen up. So I think we're at verse 3 now of chapter 2. Okay. The sons of Yehuda, Unan, Shelah. These three were born to him from the daughter of Shua, the Canaanite. But the firstborn of Yehuda, was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, so he killed him. So that's kind of like an overview of what happened with the whole bearing seed to his brother and all that. That guy did not want to bear seed to his brother's wife, so he ended up being killed. Now Tamar, his daughter-in-law, bore to him Perez, and Zerah. Therefore, all the sons of Yehuda were 5. The sons of Perez, Hezron, and Hamul. The sons of Zerah, Zimri, Ethan, Heman, as well as Kalkol, Derah, 5 altogether. Sons of Kami, Akar, who disturbed Yashrael and sinned by the theft of what was anathema. Now, I think anathema means what? Under the ban?
Possibly cut off, something like that.
Yeah, like I know. I'm trying to remember. Anathema is like in the Greek New Testament too. Like it's almost like you're put under a curse. Because I remember there's something Paul said in his letters. Let me look up that up real quick. Like anathema means like you're like. I remember seeing something where let me go to Blue Letter Bible real quick. This would be easy to do. BlueLetterBible.org. Okay. Yeah, anathema is like a Greek word. You won't really see it in any other versions in the Tanakh.
Actually, Aramaic.
Huh. Interesting. So that would then, according to what Brother Yahushua just said, that would leave credence to that the Greek New Testament would have had to be translated by a Aramaic. To have certain Aramaic or Hebrew words, that means there has to be the Greek cannot be a primary language then. So right here you have 1 Corinthians 16:22 anathema. This is the only time you'll see it like in a normal Bible. It's only mentioned once in the Greek New Testament. See here, G331, unless you have a Septuagint. Curse. Yep, bind under. Yeah, like under the ban. Yeah, curse. So it's like you're cursed for condemnation type of thing. Go ahead, brother.
Another way that could be said is set apart for destruction.
Yeah. So bind under a great curse, accursed. So yeah, this is like if you. So this it makes perfect sense why the Septuagint's using this. It makes perfect sense why it would use the same Greek word or Aramaic word. It would be interesting if it's Aramaic because then that means the Septuagint's using Aramaic. Go ahead, brother. I don't know if that's a new hand, old hand. So yeah, because the Vulgate. Interesting. So the Vulgate is using it. Let me look something up because the Vulgate is supposed to be translating from Hebrew. That's a little confusing. Hold on a second. Did Jerome use the LXX for Chronicles? I know he started with the Septuagint.
I wonder where the Aramaeans got the word anathema, because there's not even that word doesn't exist in Hebrew. It exists in Aramaic. So it that shows you clearly that like Aramaic is not Hebrew. They're similar, but they both got words that the other language doesn't have.
So I wonder why. So this would prove to me then that the Greek New Testament is being translated from a Aramaic that's older. If that's the case, it would have to be because like if it's not in their language, they can't be the original version if they have words from a different language being translated over. It's like, for example, like the Greek Septuagint will have Hebrew words carried over. Like, so you can't say the Septuagint is the original text if it's carrying over Hebrew words. The same thing with the Greek New Testament. The Septuagint is a translation of the Paleo-Hebrew. Supposedly the original Paleo Hebrew scriptures And so if that's carrying over Hebrew, that means obviously it can't be obviously has to be a translation of the original. And I would say the same thing for the Greek New Testament. Sometimes will have Hebrew words in it, Aramaic words in it. So that's why the majority of us, I think, would agree here that the original New Testament most likely was either written in one of two languages, either Aramaic or Hebrew, because they're carrying over like words from those languages. And a lot of Aramaic words actually are in the Greek New Testament. If you really look for them, a lot of them are there. So that's, to me, that's just proof of that. So let me see here. What's weird is they're saying anathema is like, why would the Vulgate have it? That's what's confusing the heck out of me. Go ahead, brother.
So the Greek, it's saying that the Greek Renewed Covenant has a lot more. So Greek Renewed Covenant has Aramaic loan words, but the Aramaic Peshitta also has Greek words in it as well. However, very few. The Greek Renewed Covenant has a lot more Aramaic words in it than the Aramaic Peshitta has Greek words in it. But there are a couple Greek words in the Aramaic Peshitta. But I mean, considering that people were speaking Greek, it's, you know, there's a lot more there's a lot more Greek words in the, I'm sorry, a lot more Aramaic words in the Greek Renewed Covenant.
Interesting. I see that swapping with other manuscripts too, like the Targum Onkelos uses a lot of Greek, even though it's supposed to be an Aramaic. So that's kind of interesting to me. What I found out that this is a light bulb moment here, and this proves that the Masoretic is not the original Paleo-Hebrew scriptures, that they did not have them. And it says right here in Jerome's day, says right here that Jerome would have used these original hybrid Hebrew Aramaic texts. So this means that the closest the Masoretic text has is what Jerome had. And mind you, you're talking about 300 AD at best. Okay, so this is from AI Overview. The Vulgate, St. Jerome's Latin translation of the Bible, includes Aramaic words because the original Hebrew and Aramaic texts. Now, when it says original Hebrew and Aramaic, it's saying the sources that our modern Bibles have today, okay, were incorporated during Jerome's translation process. So if Jerome was the first person to have those texts, you cannot say the Masoretic used the originals. Cannot. And this is a big deal, because this proves what people have in their prefaces in their Bibles is a bold-faced lie. The Masoretes did not preserve the original scriptures. They did not have them. I've been trying to tell people this for like a while now. This is like proven history here. So I'm glad that I was able to find this, because this proves what you have in your Masoretic text Bibles is a you could say a modern copy of the Vulgate, essentially, in your Tanakh. That's essentially what it is. It's like, Jerome's version that got revisioned, mind you, and retranslated. So even the Jerome version of the Hebrew text that you have in your Bibles today, like even including the Hallelujah Scriptures, what they have is not even as accurate as the Vulgate, because the Masoretes were changing things even from what Jerome had. Certain messianic prophecies you'll see for yourself, where Yahusha is like completely taken out of in certain places that the Vulgate agree with the LXX. So whatever new Hebrew copies that Jerome had at that time were actually more accurate than the Masoretic text in certain areas, like Genesis. I think it's Genesis 48:11 or 49:11, where it's word for word almost with the Septuagint. So there's like, it's even more corrupt with the Masoretic text Like, I hate to say it, you're almost better off with a Catholic Bible for a beginner. I would hate to say it because it's closer to the Septuagint in the Tanakh. You're almost better off as a beginner to have like an Orthodox type of Bible or a Catholic Bible because at least they're closer to the original source material rather than what most modern translations have today is like copy, until like it's like our even the Holy Scriptures today, the source that they're using for the Tanakh, it's like they're at the last person on the game of telephone. Versus at least with the Vulgate, there may be, 2, 3, maybe the second, third, or fourth person in the line of telephone. So just to give a comparison there, why I do recommend people that are starting out to, use those type of Bibles because at least it's closer to the original. At least it's closer in source material, manuscript wise. The Masoretic is so far from the original. Even the source they used, they changed things from. They were not even being honest to what Rome had. To be honest, there was a bunch of things that got changed. So anyway, yeah. See, this is the type of lies that I hate. Pisses me off. Okay, it says right here, modern translations are based on the original Hebrew and Aramaic. And see, the thing is, when people hear that, they're thinking, oh, it's the original Hebrew. No. What they mean by original Hebrew and Aramaic, they mean the sources for the Masoretic text are what they're based on. They're not based on the original Paleo-Hebrew scriptures. So that's the problem with today. They teach people that original Hebrew. They slap the title original Hebrew on something that is far removed from the original Paleo-Hebrew scriptures. So to me, that's just, false advertising to me. But anyway, but that makes sense now why there's Aramaic words. I always wanted to know about that, so I'm glad I found that out. So that makes sense why anathema there is in the Vulgate and not in the Septuagint. I was like really confused for a second. I was like, why? So now that makes sense. Let's see, where was I at? Verse 8, Mom, or
I don't know. I was in the bathroom. I don't know where you guys are.
Sons, we're at verse 8 of chapter 2.
Okay.
The sons of Ethan, or Atham, Azariah, the sons of Hezron, who were born to him, Yaramiel, Ram, and Chalubai. Then Ram conceived Aminadab, and Aminadab conceived Nason, the leader of the sons of Yehuda. Also, Nason conceived Salma from Boaz, whom Boaz rose up. Interesting. Who Boaz rose up. Wonder if the translator's adding a little bit there because I don't see the word rose up in the other versions. The other versions will just say the person who begot Boaz. Very, very weird.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up later why the Vulgate differs there. Truly, Boaz conceived Obed, who also himself conceived Jesse or Yishai. Now Jesse conceived the firstborn Eliab, the second Aminadab, the third Shema, the fourth Nathaniel, the fifth Radai, the sixth Ozen, the seventh Daud. Their sisters were Zeruiah, Abigail, sons of Zeruiah, Abishai, Joab, and Ashahel, 3. And Abigail conceived Amasa, whose father was Yether, the Ishmaelite. No. All right, so we're at verse 18 here. No. All right, truly Caleb, the son of Hezron, took a wife named Azubah, of whom he conceived. Uriath. So whom he conceived Uriath, and her sons were Yeshur, Shubab, and Ardon. And when Azubah had died, So we're at verse 19. When Zubah had died, Caleb took a wife Ephrathah, who bore him her. Now that is so interesting to me. Caleb's wife name was Ephrathah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Bethlehem is.
Right.
And that's where Yahusha's prophesied to be born. So to me, that's interesting. Caleb, I wonder if there's something prophetic comparing Caleb to Yahusha. I just wonder. I wonder.
Yours has an A at the end?
Yeah.
Mine doesn't.
Well, it's pretty much the same.
Oh, I know.
Just,
I realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different spelling. Probably the original Greek is supposed to be Ephrathah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they translated as Ephrath. Maybe the Hebrews Ephrath. I don't know. There could be just a difference in spelling. Now her conceived Uri. Uri conceived Bezalel. Bezalel, I think, is the guy that Yahuwah inspires to the tent making and all that. The tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, Hezron entered the daughter of Machir, father of Gilead, and he took her when he was 60 years old. Wow. That's pretty old to have a wife by. Maybe he was near 60. She puts him Sagub or Saruk. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, probably in that time though.
Mm-hmm.
60 old, but they probably didn't have a lot of the same health conditions that we have at 60. They're
That's right.
strength and
Yeah, I keep forgetting that back then, even in the patriarchs' times, they were not having children until they were 70, 80 years old because they had another, like Brother Yahusha was saying, like their health would have been better. Also, their lifespans were double what ours are now.
Yeah.
So even after the flood, you still have people living between like 130, 150. So yeah. I think it's not until like Masha's death until you see like, is that right? Like the 120 really doesn't happen until Masha dies.
Yeah. And then you start seeing him a little bit less than that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's
Joseph was 110.
You
know, Joseph was a little bit less than that, but not much. Yeah.
I wonder why that would be.
Trying to think
like what he would have done that would
it's only 10 years. That's not a really big huge deal. I mean, it's basically the same category.
I wonder if Yahuwah wanted him to die before the whole
probably did. He probably did. Yes.
Before the whole enslavement
it was like almost like a sort of a favor, to him to get him out of there before all that mess began.
Yeah, because not too much long after his death, then you have
that's right.
You have the enslavement in Egypt. So I wonder if Yahuwah wanted to take him early.
I wonder how many of Jacob's sons actually wound up being stuck there when that all changed. You know what I mean? Like, or if most of them would have maybe died off.
I think pretty much all of them were stuck down there. Because it says in Exodus 12, they lived in Canaan and Egypt for a total of 430 years. So I don't think any of them like escaped back to Canaan. I think all of them were pretty much.
I just mean if they would have died before that happened is what I'm thinking. I don't mean they would have gone somewhere else. I mean that like Reuben and all of them, some of them were older than Joseph. Joseph was one of the youngest.
Yeah, maybe his brothers would have.
Benjamin maybe. Benjamin probably was still around, but the rest of them were older than Joseph.
Yeah. I don't think Genesis tells us.
No.
Like when they exactly died. I really don't know.
I found one interesting thing. This is very minor, but I just thought I'd mention it. I went back to Genesis where it first talks about Keturah. In Genesis, It just says this was Abraham's second wife. It doesn't say anything about her being a concubine. Then when we were reading today, it refers to her as a concubine, his wife, but like it doesn't say it that way in Genesis. Just saying.
Yeah, probably because concubine just means wife. We've been given a wrong understanding of what a concubine
Yeah,
is.
but they do say that it's like a lesser wife. It's not as much prestige, you know what I mean? And it's not a big deal.
Yeah, what verse is that again in chapter 1? I'm just noticing the original LXX misses a lot of those verses.
Let me see. The Torah. I don't remember where this.
Let's see. Let me look it up. Keturah, the concubine. Huh.
Oh, she's in the 32nd verse.
Yeah, see, I think a lot of that stuff I think was okay. This part is not added in, but there's like a good 10, 12 verses that the Masoretic adds in. Okay. I want to look. You said 32nd verse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to just see if there's even a difference in wording, like if the Greek means anything different. I think it just for whatever reason they decided to call her his concubine here. There, I'm not even in the Greek. There's no actual link to that word, which is weird. Like I guess they don't know what it means. Let me see here. Concubine, peglesh, of uncertain derivation. Concubine, also masculine, a paramour, whatever that means. Concubine, paramour. Yeah, so for some reason, I don't know why it would change. Unless they just wanted to distinguish. Maybe there came to be a point in time where they started looking at concubines as lesser wives at that point. What's weird is, she's never called that in the Genesis account.
Mm-hmm.
That's the weird thing. So maybe they start considering, status wise, because I don't know when that actually started, that tradition of the concubine is like lesser, not a equal wife, a lesser wife. I don't think that started right away as being the case. I think that could have been, maybe post Babylon, they started looking at them as, not being equal to being a wife. Oh, go ahead, brother. See. Let me see.
I thought I was unmuted. Even though the Torah says that if you take another wife, you can't diminish from the first wife, I really doubt Yasharal and especially the outside nations weren't following it. But I don't think Yasharal was, really following that. At least not everyone in Yasharal. So you probably had a lot of wives being taken to the point where the husband could no longer provide for this wife the same way he provides for this wife, and so this wife gets treated a little bit less than this wife.
Yeah.
And so have wives that are less than.
Yeah,
because
I would say.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Why decipher between the two categories then if they're all wives? Do you know what I mean? Like there has to be some sort of like even with Solomon and David, they designated who were the concubines, who were the wives. Yeah. And there has to be some kind of a difference. Otherwise,
from what I remember, it's not that you treat them differently. What the way Yahuwah deciphered it, even in Abraham's day, was she's not under your power.
I got you.
She's like the mistress of your regular wife. So she is now like under your first wife's power. So like basically that's why Abraham was told, okay, you're sleeping with her tonight. You're sleeping with, you know, and
But in this category, she was his wife after Sarah had died.
yeah.
So she was referred to as his second wife. So that's the part of it that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
yeah, it could just be that in their culture, she was still in their
in
opinion,
that group, yeah.
in their opinion, whoever's writing chronicles, is still a man, mom. Still
Yeah, I got
fallible men
I got
can, still have these traditions where, I would agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I don't think she should be called that, especially if the first wife's dead.
Yeah.
That's
So she's the wife now.
Yeah.
She's the wife now. And
who had never said that she's a lesser wife.
No.
Like that came from the Israelites, like Brother Yahushua was saying. That was more of like how they were treating the wives. Like eventually, if you have 20, 30, 50, 40, 50, 100 wives, there's no way you're treating them exactly equal. I think also concubine would in what is it, Jacob's story, in the one that's less loved would be a concubine. Maybe you could explain it that way. Like she's not really his first choice. We see that with him and the two sisters, where Yahuwah after that, he's like,
that's it.
You're not going to take a woman to wife with her sister. You're not going to take both of them as wives.
That's right.
But that to me would be a better definition of what a concubine is. It's like the one that's not as loved as the other. Like that would be a more maybe politically correct definition of what a concubine is. It's like you have this woman that's your first love, and then this other wife you have is like your second love. It's not exactly, as you're not exactly as fond of her as the other wife. So yeah, I don't know. That's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Because like other than that, like, I really think like our the term concubine has been bastardized.
Yes, it has.
In the modern era, it almost rubs us the wrong way when we see the word concubine.
Like a sexual slave. It's basically how the world looks at that term.
Yeah, but like for example, I think it was who was the Egyptian one? Hagar. Hagar was the mistress of Sarah. So basically, she had to do what Sarah told her to do.
That's right.
And she was really the servant of Sarah, not Abram.
Right.
So that's where I think people get confused with the whole concubine thing. They don't fully understand what Yahuwah's even showing.
And even mistress does not mean like today. Today, what you would take to mean as a mistress would be something very unsacred, unbiblical, whatever,
Her mistress is just like someone that's a servant,
right?
Like maid servant, like type of thing.
Yeah.
They're basically she gave her maid servant to be a surrogate mother for Abraham's seed.
Yeah.
Because they mistrust Yahuwah. They didn't fully trust Yahuwah. And that's like the whole thing about Paul. He's like children of the flesh, Ishmael seed,
right.
Children of the promise. Isaac. And that was the whole concept. Was that Abraham trusted in his own works through Hagar, versus trusting having true trust in Yahuwah and waiting for Isaac to be the fulfillment of his seed. So, Abraham wasn't waiting. He was like, you know what?
That's right.
And that's what happened with that. But yeah, that's all Hagar was. She was just she was like a servant to Sarah. And a lot of the times with the concubines, that's what would happen, is that they were under the power of the first wife. And so it wasn't, that whole sex slave stuff. Yeah, that's because we're Westerners and we don't.
The one you had to feel bad for was Jacob.
Yeah.
Being told, you're going with her tonight. You're going with that. It's like, man alive.
Sometimes in that situation, you pray to go to Sheol early because, having sisters as your wives.
Yeah, no, that's when Yahuwah said, okay, no. It's bad enough this happened to my Jacob. No, no, no. This ain't going on. Ain't going on anymore. Yeah, that was a mess between the two of them. Because then you got sisters acting like sisters, you know, saying, oh, well, I could do this for him and you couldn't. And this cattiness, that was a mess, man.
Yeah.
Big
And
mess.
see, Hagar was acting like that too.
Yes,
Towards
she
Sarah,
was.
but
She was.
she wasn't in a place to be doing that, since she's a lesser status, and especially she's talking like that to her master.
Mhm.
In a way, Sarah was her master, and she's
Right.
mouthing off to her, you know, probably, you know,
Yep, that's
like,
right.
being prideful against her because she needed
Because
her.
she could bear. Yep.
She needed her to give Abraham a child. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff there that kind of gets overlooked with the whole Ishmael situation and the Hagar situation. That there's a lot of stuff there that kind of, if you understand, like, you know, what it means, like when it says her eyes were fallen in the eyes of her mistress, meaning like she was she looked at her as lesser, like she was looking at her boss. It would be like us, like going to your boss at a job and say, oh, hey, you know, I'm better than you, type of thing. Like you're stepping out of your lane.
But you know, let's just be real for a minute. When we're talking about physical relations, we're talking about sex, okay? And when she stepped into that part, into over that line, you might say, and had relations with Abraham, you know what? There are things inside of her that could have been changing. And honestly, it would not have surprised me if we probably don't know every little thing that was said between them. I could imagine it probably got pretty ugly. You know, because when you're really dealing with that sort of thing, that's that can really go astray. I was just going to mention, since Doug is fixing something, I was just going to mention that I noticed when we were, or have we gotten there yet? I might be jumping ahead. I'm looking at the part when we get to when it talks about all of David's wives. We're not there yet. Okay, I'll save it.
We're halfway through the chapter, to be honest.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of things that I was wrong on when it comes to David's lineage.
We're not. I don't think we're there yet.
Adonijah was not the next in line. So my whole theory as to why he was so badly wanting to steal the throne, but that wasn't even what I was thinking about. Something.
He might have been.
Oh, Abigail, David's sister. Yeah, that's the thing I was thinking about. Abigail, David's sister, is the one who was mother to Joab, the captain of the army, and there was one other that was close with Joab. The two of them were brothers, and their mother was David's sister, Abigail. So what I just found the whole thing interesting, all the mess that went down with all of them in the family. Boy, David had a lot to deal with his family, man. I'll tell you, because many of them were in the army with him, and then Joab's the captain and going behind his back and trying to do all these things, you know. I found that interesting because that was his nephew. All right, enough. Oh,
Right. So I'm just getting myself something to eat. So you want to finish off the chapter for me?
Oh, sure. What's
22? I think.
Okay, no problem.
Just
Verse
get this share screen on.
22. Okay. All right, so we're kind of in the middle of Hezron with the daughter of Machir and all of that. Okay. But Geshur and Aram captured Havat, Yair, as well as Kanat with its surrounding settlements, 60 towns. All these were descendants of Machir, the father of Gilead. After Hezron died in Caleb, Ephratah, Abiyah, the wife of Hezron, bore him Ashur, the father of Tekoa. The sons of Yerahmeel, the firstborn of Hetzron, Ram his firstborn, Bunah, Oren, Otsem, and Ahiah. Yerahmeel had another wife, whose name was Atara. She was the mother of Onam. The sons of Ram, the firstborn of Yerahmeel, Maaz, Yamin, and Eker. The sons of Onam, Shammai, and Yada. The sons of Shammai, Nadab, and Abishur. Abishur's wife was named Abigail, who bore him Ahban and Molid. The sons of Nadab, Seled, and Apaim. Seled died without children. The son of Apaim, Yishi, who was the father of Sheshan. Sheshan was the father of Alai. The sons of Yada, Shammai's brother, Yether and Jonathan. Yether died without children. The sons of Jonathan, Pelet, and Zatzah. These were the descendants of Yerahmeel. Sheshan had no sons, only daughters. He had an Egyptian servant named Yarha. Sheshan gave his daughter in marriage to his servant Yarha, and she bore him Attai. Attai was the father of Nathan, Nathan the father of Zabad, Zabad the father of Ephalal, Ephlal the father of Obed, Obed the father of Jehu, Jehu the father of Azariah, Azariah the father of Helez, Helez the father of Eliasah, Eliasah the father of Shishmai, Shishmai the father of Shalom, Shalom the father of Yechamiah, and Yechamiah the father of Elishama. The sons of Caleb, the brother of Yerahmeel, Mesha, his firstborn, who was the father of Ziph, and his son, Marishah, who was the father of Hebron. The sons of Hebron, Korah, Tapua, Rechem, and Shema. Shema was the father of Raham, and Raham the father of Yorkiam. Rechem was the father of Shammai. The son of Shammai was Maon, and Maon was the father of Beth Zor. Caleb's concubine, Ephah, was the mother of Haran, Motzah, and Gazez. Haran was the father of Gazez. The sons of Yatai, Regem, Yotham, Gishan, Pelet, Ephah, and Sha'af. Caleb's concubine, Ma'akah, was the mother of Sheber and Terhana. She also gave birth to Sha'af, the father of Madmana, and to Shiva, the father of Makbena and Gibeah. Caleb's daughter was Aksah. These were the descendants of Caleb, the sons of Hur, the firstborn of Ephratah, Shobal, the father of Kiriath Yearim, Salma, the father of Bethlehem, and Hereth, the father of Beth Gader. The descendants of Shobal, the father of Kiriath Yearim, were Haroah, half the Manahatites, the clans of Kiriath Yearim, the Yithrites, Putites, Shumanites, and Mishriites. From these descendants, the Sortites and Eshtoelites. The descendants of Salma, Bethlehem, the Netophatites, Atroth, Beth Joab, half the Manatites, the Tzorites, and the clans of scribes who lived at Yabez, the Tirahites, Shimeatites, and Sukkatites. These are the Canaanites who came from Hamat, the father of the house of Rechab. Okay, and that's it. Next chapter goes into David. Oh.
All right. So anything interesting? Or?
I didn't see too much interesting except for the couple of names of places that we see later, but yeah, not really. Caleb had a couple of concubines.
Yeah, it's weird. You don't see much of his family mentioned. Like the people he begets.
Well, he had quite a number of them.
Does Yahusha, son of Nun, ever get mentioned? No.
I don't think so.
I always find that weird.
Yeah. Was he married?
I would have thought so at some point.
I don't know. A lot of those people that, father used in very, very active duty and kept them very, very busy. I mean, the bulk of his life was assisting, Moshe in going to the very end and then being anointed by him to go into the promise. I mean, it would have been difficult for him to hold down any kind of a, I don't know. He might have been like Paul or like some of the other ones, like Daniel, some of the other ones that just their lives were dedicated to service. And that's that.
I just don't know because as far as him, he was mainly a warrior. He wasn't really he wasn't really serving Yahuwah like in like anything in the tabernacle, really. I mean, he mainly was a warrior and someone that was supposed to be a prophet who takes over for Moses. That's pretty much what he was doing. So I would find it very weird that he wouldn't have children, but Caleb would. It's because they had very similar duties and stuff. Maybe he didn't meet someone, but I think even Jewish tradition, I think, believes that he would have had children.
Oh no, they're just not mentioned.
Yeah. It would just be very weird because most of them that were in the wilderness did have children. Most of them did. They came out of Egypt. Everyone came out of Egypt together. And
I mean, I'm assuming Daniel didn't, but who knows? He could have. He worked for a long time in the palace, for Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, but it wouldn't have been impossible. His first few years were very active with Nebuchadnezzar, but then he worked in the palace. He wasn't with the other three. He worked by himself over in the palace, and he could have definitely, raised up a family at that point, I'm thinking. But who knows, really? Who really knows?
I think the problem with him is that he wouldn't have had the time, really. I mean, Daniel was commissioned to, basically serve the king a lot. He really he's kind of it could be. Oh wow. Huh. Interesting. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I'm sorry. I was all the way over in the kitchen. I didn't see your hand up.
Oh.
Weird. Rahab, huh? That is beyond strange.
What about Rahab?
He looked it up. According to Jewish tradition, he would have married Rahab of Jericho.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
That's a little far-fetched.
Things that are really kind of. They also believe that Solomon had a baby with Sheba and all that stuff too. So yeah, who knows, man? They have a lot of tales. As
that's not even the craziest Solomon tale. You go to weird stuff like Testament of Solomon and all that, you'll see supposedly he had a magical ring that he was controlling demons.
Oh yeah.
And all that. I think it's the Testament of Solomon talks about that everyone likes to promote the Testament of Solomon. or one of those where it talks about, you know, like almost like promoting that Yahuwah would give him a ring to subdue demons to his will, which is like completely against the Torah. That's like divination.
Yeah.
You're using a magical ring to like trap demons and whatever. That to me is
Yeah.
very far fetched. So
Yeah.
there's some crazy legends about Solomon.
That's why Paul warns us about that stuff, tales and
Yeah.
of all that.
Yeah. Like yeah, I don't know. I really feel like Yahusha would have met someone with the whole big group that they would have been with.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
Could be.
yeah. But
Yeah, if David could have all the wives he had and be at war all those many years, yeah, I could see it.
because that generation really, I mean, they almost all of them, I think, had children and were beginning children.
Yeah, it's true.
That generation that came out of Egypt.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's possible he could have been a eunuch. I just think not physical eunuch.
No.
I don't think he had his member cut off or anything, but he might have been a spiritual eunuch. It's possible.
You never know.
But yeah, it's just that back then it was very popular, especially for Yahuwah's will, for Israel to be as the sand of the sea at that point.
Right.
I would think Yahuwah would want him to have a wife.
Yeah, could be.
You don't really see men abstaining themselves really until the New Testament. Like until that promise is fulfilled and they become as sand of the sea, then that's when you really start seeing some Israelites abstaining from marriage. But you really don't see that a lot in the Tanakh time period.
No.
You really don't, because they're trying to, beget as many descendants as possible. So I don't know. I would like to look that up if there's any.
If Yahusha, son of Nun, had that at the point where he gives out all the territories and he settles down, in his place. You think that if there were, that would have been the point that it might have been mentioned, but it just wasn't.
Yeah. So this is the only place where we get Caleb's descendants in scripture.
I think so.
And I find that weird too. So let's see here. So, guys, see here. How do I go to second chapter? Okay. I'm not used to using Bible Gateway here, so it's like trying to figure out how to go from chapter to chapter here. Okay. Yeah. Her. Yeah. See, this is where we get Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
Or him.
Yep.
Her.
Yep.
I think Ben-Hur was actually one of the ones that in Exodus, the son of Hur was one of the ones that was like making stuff for the tabernacle, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it's in Exodus 31 or something, where it talks about Yahuwah according to the gift Yahuwah has baruched you, your physical gifts, because they were commanded to like make certain things for the tabernacle, whether it was women sputting linen and thread, where it was men making metal or gold. Yeah. It was him and Bezalel. Those are the two guys I remember. Bezalel and Ben-Hur. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Exodus 31. My stupid shared screen is all screwed up right now. Don't know why. Okay, there we see. Bezalel and Aholiab were appointed for the work of the tabernacle. See if they talk about Ben-Hur here. Aholiab, Eliab. Let me see here. I want to find where Ben-Hur is mentioned because I know I've seen it before. Why does the shared screen keep screwing up? It's weird. Okay. Let's see. The son of Hur. Hur. Book of Exodus. Oh, okay. So Bezalel is one of the descendants of Hur. So he's the son of the son of Hur.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So he would be the son of Ben-Hur. Okay. Now, see again. Now, as far as the movie goes, I don't know why they use that name because the guy Ben-Hur in that movie has nothing to do with the Tanakh. I don't know why they use the same name. I think isn't he a Roman, the Ben-Hur
I
guy?
have no idea. I've never watched that movie. It kind of confuses me as to whether it's supposed to be a biblical movie or what. I've never sat and watched it.
Let me see. Movie plot. I want to see if they explain why they use that name Ben-Hur.
There's certain movies that I'm just like, The Robe is another one that I've never watched.
Supposedly, it does have a historical. It says it's supposed to take place in 26 AD in Jerusalem. Judah Ben-Hur, a wealthy Jewish prince and merchant, and lives with his mother Miriam and a younger sister Tirzah. The family steward has a daughter. So interesting. Could have just been passed down. The name could have just been passed down in this setting. So I guess he's supposed to be a Yahudi that's given the name Judah Ben-Hur, which is very interesting.
Could mean Judah, son of
Go ahead,
Hur.
brother.
That would just mean Judah, son of Hur.
That's right. That's him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So Yehuda, son of Hur. So that's interesting. It's a, this. I've seen this movie like being promoted a lot, like over the platforms. I never actually ever saw it. It was in 1959.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's supposed to be like a biblical satire. I think is what it's supposed to be, or something to do with the first century in Rome. I mean, it's devoted to his faith. Trying to see here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there is a little historical backdrop here. Supposedly he meets with Pontius Pilate in the movie. So it seems
So it's got overtones.
Yeah, it seems like it would have a lot to do with Rome in the first century AD or second century. Yeah.
Charlton Heston was interested in a lot of those biblical and semi-biblical movies. He took a lot of those roles.
Oh, go ahead, bro.
Oh no, old hand. They need to have a they need to have a thing where it like automatically lowers your hand.
Yeah, because the way they have it now, it's either you have to do it every time or I have to do it. And it's like I don't even realize it when sometimes it's left up. I don't even notice it at first. So we're almost done here. We're kind of at the third chapter here. So Brother Dennis, since you haven't been able to be on and we haven't had the pleasure of you reading for us for a while, would you like to read chapter 3 for us?
Oh boy. I don't know if my voice will hold out.
Oh, your voice is still hurting? Okay, yeah. We'll have someone else read. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't want to string your voice. Let's see here. Chapter 3. So these are the sons of Daoud. Okay, this is quick.
Yeah,
I can just finish this up for us. This is wow. This
it's
weird how
short.
the
This
other
one's short.
ones
Yeah.
are so long, and then this one's short.
Excuse me.
These were the sons of Daoud or Duud, born to him in Hebron. The first was Ammon. So we got another Ammon. Or no, this is Amnon. Okay. Son of Ahinoam of Yezreel. Now that's interesting. We'll go back to that. Yezreel. Second, Daniel, the son of Abigail of Carmel. Third, Absalom, son of Maacah, daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. Fourth, Adoniah, son of Haggith. So Adoniah would have been the fourth born.
Fourth. Yes.
The fifth is Shephatiah, son of Abital. The sixth, Ithream, by his wife Eglah. These six were born to Daoud in Hebron when he reigned 7 years and 6 months. Daoud reigned in Jerusalem 33 years. Interesting, 33.
Mm-hmm.
And these were the children born to him there. Shamua, Shubab, Nathan, and Solomon. So Solomon would have been like one of the last. He would have been almost a son of his old age.
They had 4 boys together.
Oh, okay.
So I think Solomon, was the youngest, I think.
Yeah, so he would have been like the Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been like the Benjamin or the Joseph of David's children.
Yeah, it even tells you right there. These 4 were by Bathsheba.
So they were by Bathsheba, daughter of Amniel. These were also Har, Elishua, Eliphelet, Nuga, Nepheg, Yafia, Elishama, Eliada, Eliphelet. No. All these, no.
9 in all.
No, these were the sons of Daoud beside his sons of his concubine. And oh yeah, that's right. Previous verse. Yeah. So these are 9 in all children that were just mentioned before. All these were the sons of Daoud besides his sons by his concubines, and Tamar was their sister. But obviously, Tamar is the one that
Amnon
got raped and all that by Amnon. The kings of Yehuda. Solomon's son was Rehoboam. Abiyah his son, Asa his son, Jehoshaphat his son, Yahoram his son, Ahaziah his son, Joash his son, Amaziah his son, Azariah his son, Utham his son, Ahaz his son, Hezekiah his son, Maaseiah his son, Amnon his son, Josiah his son, the sons of Josiah, Yohanan the firstborn, Jehoiakim the second son, Zedekiah the third, Shallum the fourth. The successors of Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin his son, and Zedekiah the royal line after the exile. The descendants of Jehoiakim the captive, Shealtiel his son, Malchiram, Pedaiah, Shenazar, Yakamiah, Hushama, Nadabiah. Jeez. Pedaiah, he was like, I'm going to trip you up today. All right, Zerubbabel, Shemai, the sons of no, you were. No. Let's see, the sons of Pedaiah, Zerubbabel and Shimei, the sons of Zerubbabel, Meshulam, Hananiah, Shelemith was their sister. There were also 5 brothers, Hashubah, Uhal, Berechiah, Hazadiah, Yushab, Hezed, the descendants of Hananiah, Pelatiah, Yashaya, the sons of Raphiah, of Arnan, Obadiah, and of Shechaniah, the descendants of Shechaniah, Shemai, the sons. No. Okay, so we got descendants of Shechaniah. No. So Shemaiah's sons. No. Hadaniah, Igal, Neriah, Shaphat, Beriah, 6 in all, the sons of Neriah, Elionel, Hezekiah, and Azrikam, 3 in all, the sons of Elonai, Huda, no. No. Let's see. So Hudavia, Eliashib, Peliah, Akub, Yuhanan, Deliah. No. Deliah, Anani, 7 in all. So these are all the descendants of Daud here. So we have even all the way to the captivity into exile, all the way down here. So, yeah. All right. So it looks like the NIV they used in verse 5. It says here that it's read like that in one Hebrew manuscript in the Vulgate. See also Septuagint and 2 Samuel 11:3. Most Hebrew manuscripts Beth Shua. Huh. And then verse 6, 2 Hebrew manuscripts. Also see 2 Samuel 5:15, 1 Chronicles 14:5. Most Hebrew manuscripts Ali Shama, Hebrew Uram, a variant of Yahuram. Verse 16, Hebrew Yakaniah, a variant of Yehoiachin. Also in verse 17. So what I like is that the NIV actually gives you a lot of these footnotes at the end here. That's pretty much for today's study, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I know it seemed kind of boring because we were just going through genealogies, but there was like a lot of purpose to these genealogies.
There is.
It shows that there was a lot of the purpose was to keep track of Levitical line, Davidic line, all of that had to do with these genealogies. That way they could go back from the captivity and be like, okay, can you prove that you're of Levite stock? No, okay, you can't be a priest, and so on and so forth. There was like multiple reasons behind these genealogies. Anyway, so hopefully you guys enjoyed today's study. I'm going to try my best, guys, to find that link to the Masoretic versus Septuagint chronologies and how it shows that, possibly the assumption that our world is only 6,000 years old or near 6,000 could be off due to certain genealogies in Genesis 5 and Genesis 10. So anyway, it will come. It's going to honestly come to a lot of importance in these last days when you got people, basing. I'm not saying all of us have based our beliefs on that, but a lot of people with prophetics have believed that the millennial has to happen after the 6th day prophetically and all that, like after the end of the 6th day prophetically. So the implications that the Masoretic text was wrong this whole time and that their genealogies have been corrupted and that would have any bearing now on the timeline is a big deal because that means we can't really claim that Yahushua has to come literally on the 7th day prophetically if we're already at the 7th day prophetically. So technically there is like implications. If the Septuagint is right and they're right about the estimation that is 7,400 years old already, this earth, then we have to kind of have to, adjust our understanding that the millennial had to happen in the 7th year prophetically, and all that. Because I know I was one of those that used to preach that, I used to teach that, but even in the Bible itself, it doesn't actually say that.
No, it doesn't.
It's an assumption, it's a presumption at best that his millennial has to hit the exact prophetic 7th day, and all that. So that to me, it's important to look at stuff like that because if the genealogies have been off and people are getting the whole 6,000 years mainly on those genealogies, then you can't even rationalize even the assumption based on how old this earth is. So that's why I've been really studying into these chronology charts to try to figure out because supposedly according to that one guy showed on the shared screen earlier, even the Samaritan Pentateuch, even though it agrees a lot with the Septuagint on the genealogies, some of the genealogies are different ages in the Samaritan Pentateuch. So there's like a conundrum going on with stuff like that. So, but anyway, so I just wanted to mention that anyway, that really we should not base our, our end time interpretation off of something that someone got from a Masoretic chronology, is what I'm trying to say. So we should really always let scripture speak for itself. And, whenever he returns, whether it's the 7,000th
That's right.
prophetic or 8,000th, he's going to return when it's time to return, when things have been fulfilled for him to return. So, so anyway, but obviously I'm not saying that it's going to be, another 1,000 years. I seriously doubt that. But, or even another couple hundred. But what I'm trying to say is we shouldn't just use the whole idea 6-week creation and prophetically a date is as 1,000 years, that try to interpret. What I'm saying is we shouldn't try to interpret prophecy off of a verse that is not even talking about prophecy. The verse is just basically saying time in Yahuwah's eyes is different than ours.
That's right.
It's not saying that literally a prophetic year is 1,000 years. It's not saying that. So anyway, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the study today. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Yahuwah Yahusha willing. See you next time.